The tape snaps across my knees as the receptionist flips the sign-in sheet face down and the guard's polished shoe pins the door. Lemon cleaner sting in the air while the word open disappears behind a sweating water bottle. Under the fluorescent buzz, I taste metal, clutching my battered folder like a ribcage, my palms lined with years of dues and the curl of my late wife's handwriting, while their cologne, crisp shirts, and clipped smiles measure my shoes instead of my name, the president's gavel glinting as if it could bless a rule that shrinks to fit whoever's standing in front of it. They call it procedure as the pen is pulled an inch out of reach and a paper badge vanishes mid-count. But I call it memory, not the soft kind, the kind stamped in dates and clauses. And before this room takes its first vote, I will set one sentence from the bylaws upright, hold it to the light like a lantern, and make their camera remember what they tried to forget, because tonight the rule will speak for itself. And when it does, something in this doorway will shift. Before I continue, tap subscribe and say where you're listening. If this resonates, share it so doors stay open for people like me. The humiliation starts before I cross the tape. Cold air spills from the meeting hall like it belongs to someone else. The corridor smells faintly of lemon cleaner and fresh paint. A wall clock clicks louder than the voices. I keep my folder against my chest the way some men keep a photograph. Inside it, the bylaws with a strip of yellow marker. The official notice with date, time, and agenda. The old minutes where my name sits like a small cornerstone. At the folding table, a receptionist arranges badges into rows, then slides her hands under them as if counting what I'm not supposed to see. 2 clipboards, one turned face down, a stack of pens in a plastic cup, their tips aimed away from me. A printed sign reads, "Meeting open to property owners." Behind it, the room shows rows of chairs with empty backs. I greet her and lay out my papers in order. Notice on top, bylaws open to the section about attendance and registration. The minutes with my name near the margin, creased by years of moving houses and setting them right. The receptionist nods like a metronome. She adjusts the sign so the word open hides behind a water bottle. A guard in a navy blazer steps into a shadow and watches my feet. Not my face, my feet. The tape across the doorway sags a little under its own weight. He places one shoe against it and the tape rises, just enough to look official. His eyes flick to the clock and back to my folder. I ask for the sign-in sheet. The receptionist touches the back of the clip and says they are still confirming something in the system. She leaves the sheet face down. A pen rolls toward me and stops at the tape like it knows better than to cross. I take a breath, and the air tastes like metal and recycled air. On the wall, the minute hand snaps onto the exact time printed on my notice. The microphone inside the hall gives a small pop, the sound that comes right before someone takes the podium. I lift the corner of my notice and feel the texture of the paper. Not a flyer, not a rumor. The official document with the seal and the agenda. A promise wrapped in paper. My phone buzzed once in my jacket pocket. Ava. She is already in the corridor, quiet as light. 17, with a calm that makes rooms behave. She slides beside the railing as if she is only passing time after school. I see the shape of her phone in her hand, the camera still asleep. She meets my eyes and nods once, a private little yes. The guard watches the exchange. He shifts his stance so his shoulder points toward me, narrowing the entrance to a notch. The receptionist counts the badges again and says there might not be enough. I glance past them. The last 2 rows are empty. 4 chairs on the side hold only the meeting packets with rubber bands around them. In the front, a man with a gavel leans into a conversation, palm over the microphone, speaking to the property manager in a gray suit. I keep my voice even and place the bylaws on the table. My finger lands on the line that matters. Meetings open to property owners. Registration allowed per agenda. Rights preserved by order of notice.
I do not ask for a favor. I ask for the procedure they printed and mailed to me. My name on the old minutes would work as a second key. The receptionist fixes a name tag that isn't mine. She offers me a chair in the corridor while they clarify. The word has the tone of a closed door. I do not sit. I shift the folder to my left arm and rest my right hand on the edge of the table. I want them to see that I am not blocking anything. I am here to be included in what already includes me. A neighbor from the old days appears, thin as a fence post and steady as one. He stands a polite distance away and says he remembers my house during the first block barbecue, the one with paper lanterns across the cul-de-sac. He says it like remembering is a civic duty. The receptionist smiles at him and then at me, the smile that lives in offices. She still hasn't turned the sheet over. The clock ticks again. The sound lands in my chest. I have known that sound in bus depots, waiting rooms, service counters where my name takes longer to come to the surface. I keep breathing into the cold. A faint scent of coffee drifts from inside the hall. Someone laughs at a private comment, and the laugh dies when it reaches the tape. I look at the agenda and trace the item that pulled me here. It is a simple item. Not about anyone's yard or who can swim when. It is about whether the association will change a rule that decides who speaks before decisions are made. I picture my late wife's handwriting on the old minutes, a small mark near my signature. She made a habit of circling what mattered. She taught me to keep papers flat and clean because memory needs a clean sheet to stand on. Ava edges closer, still pretending not to belong to me. She murmurs that the clock in the hall matches the time on the notice. Her voice is low and steady. She doesn't raise her phone. She doesn't make a show. The guard notices her anyway. He shifts so the tape traces a diagonal between us and the opening, a line that keeps moving but never vanishes. I ask for the basis of the delay. The receptionist says they are verifying eligibility in a tone that suggests the word might not include me. I place the receipt for dues on the table. It slides a little against the laminate, catching the light. Paid in full, dates aligned. The receptionist places a sticky note half over it as if my receipt were shy of the room. Behind her, the president lifts a hand toward the property manager. The manager looks down at a tablet. He doesn't look toward the corridor. He doesn't see the tape or the water bottle hiding the word open. He touches the screen and nods to the president. The microphone crackles and dies again. The room seems to grow a soft edge of whispers. The guard clears his throat, not to speak, but to occupy the sound between us. He looks trained to be polite at a distance. He glances at my folder. I can tell he recognizes the gravity of a hard copy, the way the paper corners refuse to bend, the way a highlighted line can cut through a fog of vague rules. He swallows and looks at the receptionist.
Ava's sneaker squeaks once on the polished floor. She stops moving. Her eyes find the printed sign on the easel near the door. Meeting open to property owners. She reads it and then looks at me, not to ask a question, but to confirm what she already knows. I nod. She inhales and holds the breath. I can feel the room holding its breath with her. I steady myself by naming objects in my head. Tape, pen, clipboard, notice, bylaws, minutes, badge, gavel, chair, clock. The words stack like bricks in a wall I can lean on. The corridor narrows into a single frame I could sketch from memory if I had to prove it later. The lemon cleaner, the chill air, the small echo that comes from tile when a heel taps too sharply. The receptionist finally touches the clipboard.
She rotates it, but not all the way. I can see the line where my name would sit, and the black stripe of redaction over 3 names above it, as if secrecy could be a form of hospitality. She sets a pen down exactly where my hand would reach, then pulls it back half an inch. I keep my hand on the table. My voice stays low. I do not remind them who built the first bench by the community garden. I do not list the hours I spent pulling weeds with neighbors' kids. I do not trade the past for the present. I simply wait within the rule I brought with me, written in the book they told me to honor. The president looks toward the entrance for the first time. His expression is the same one I've seen at ticket counters and help desks, the look reserved for people who linger in places designed to hurry them along. He lifts his hand at the guard in a small arc, a gesture that could be read 3 ways: instruction, warning, delay. My name is still not on the sheet. The clock clicks again into the loudness of the exact minute printed on the notice. The tape trembles between the guard's shoe and the jamb. Ava's breath deepens beside the railing. The receptionist folds the corner of the sign just enough to hide 1 more letter. The door into the hall opens by an inch, and the president raises his hand toward the guard while the tape tightens across my knees. The door opens just enough to give me a slice of light. Then the president lifts his hand toward the guard, and the tape across my knees pulls tight. I lay my folder flat on the table, the notice faced upward, like a small flag that doesn't flutter. The receptionist rotates the clipboard a few degrees, stops, and lets her finger rest on the metal clip as if the clip were a brake. The guard angles his body to make a wall out of 1 person. The room breathes cold air over my hands. A hum climbs out of the ceiling vents, thin and steady. The hallway smells like lemon cleaner over old dust and a trace of burnt coffee. Fluorescent bulbs shiver once, recover, and leave a faint buzz in the corners. On the table, a cup of pens with their tips pointing away from me, the plastic cloudy from so many fingers. My bylaws lie open to the highlighted claws. The paper is warm from the heat of my palm. I can feel the raised ridge where the highlight dried years ago. Ava slides closer to the railing, the way a shadow steps into the shape that was already waiting for it. She isn't dramatic. She lifts her phone and lets the camera wake without sound. She frames the easel sign that says the meeting is open to property owners. She lets the lens drift to the wall clock, to the glass door, to the strip of tape that pretends to be a rule. She pauses on the clipboard, capturing the fact that it's face down. Then she turns away, like any teenager checking a message. Calm, even, ordinary. Inside the hall, a microphone thumps, then breathes. Someone reads the opening script about decorum, the smallest echo reaching the foyer and breaking against the taped line. I can make out the cadence, not the words. The president's gavel taps a rhythm that suggests business is started. The receptionist says the system is still refreshing. Her eyes skip over my notice, my receipt, my old minutes, as if paper has weight only when she holds it.
4 chairs in the back row have names taped to them. The tape is uneven, jagged, where a pair of scissors met a rush. The handwriting is not the same as on the agenda packets. One name is smudged into a dark thumbprint. The seats sit under a vent that hisses, not used, not needed, but kept off limits anyway. The guard shifts his stance again, and the tape across the doorway lifts, then bows, then lifts. His radio chirps a single syllable of static. I point to the line on the bylaws with a fingertip. The highlighted sentence glows a little under the harsh light. I don't push the paper toward the receptionist. I hold it on my side of the table, inside the small country of my folder. My breath fogs the very edge of the plastic badge tray. The receptionist opens a drawer and rattles it, looking for a pen that sits in plain sight 2 inches from her wrist. She closes the drawer with the same motion that hides the corner of the sign behind her water bottle. Ava moves like a metronome set to low volume. She takes one photo of the printed notice tacked to the corkboard, one of the list of owners from last year, yellowed at the edges, one of the hallway clock at the exact minute printed on my notice. She whispers that the frame includes the sign and the clock together. Her breath is clean with mint. It steadies me, a young steadiness, borrowed for a moment by an old man. The old neighbor edges up to the bulletin board and pretends to study the landscaping guidelines. He isn't pretending very hard. His finger traces down an old roster of lots and names, lands where my name sits, and taps once. He doesn't announce it. He sets his hand on the board for balance, and the cork gives a little under his palm, and his knuckle leaves a soft dent that looks like a dot over a vowel. From inside, I hear the words order of business, then something about reports. The receptionist says the badges might be short. I look past her at the plastic tray. 3 rows of badges, 2 gaps, then more badges. The math doesn't equal a shortage. Behind her shoulder, the property manager tilts a tablet toward the president, scrolling. He does not look out to the corridor. A string of whispered syllables moves along the front row and disappears into the sound of the vent. The word quorum floats out in a tone that pretends to be neutral. We're right on the line, someone says, and the receptionist nods as if the words were weather. My mouth dries, not from fear, from the taste of repeated things. I have heard on the line in rooms where clocks are loud and patience is taken for permission. On the line is a rope that tightens differently around different throats. On the line is a door with its latch already set. I bring out the receipt for dues. It skids across the laminate with a bright whisper. Dates inside dates, month by month, steady as a heartbeat. The receptionist places a sticky note half over the letters, paid in full. The sticky is the color of a ripe peach, and the edge curls up, then slowly settles as if it made a decision. She smiles and says they are just confirming everything. The smile stops at her teeth, as if there were another door inside her mouth. The guard adjusts the knot of his tie. It's tight, even straight lines across his throat. His blazer smells faintly of starch and cologne. A crease runs like a border from his shoulder to his wrist. His shoes are polished until the hallway's ceiling lights live in them. He looks past me, and then directly through me, and then not at me at all. Practiced, professional in a way that carries weight without words. Ava's reflection appears in the glass of the hall door, small and precise. She lifts her phone, not chest-high, but low near her waist, and keeps the lens steady. She slows the motion to a careful pan. Sign, clock, tape, clipboard, badge tray, table. My folder on the edge like a held breath. She taps the screen and lowers the phone. Nothing theatrical. The room notices anyway.
I think about the old minutes in my folder, the ones that traveled with me through 2 moves and a winter that took my wife while the snow tried to climb the windows. Her handwriting curls in the margin beside my name, a tiny loop like the tail of a comet. She believed in keeping proof the way other people believed in luck. I feel her belief in the weight of the folder. The receptionist finally lowers her hand to the clipboard and slides it toward herself. She flips it over halfway, then pauses, leaving a seam of paper visible. I can read the headers. I cannot see the lines. The pen sits on top like a perch. She touches it with 2 fingers and spins it. The pen draws a small circle of ink where it rests, then stops. She says again that the system is catching up. From the hall, I hear a line about the agenda posted in advance. Then the gavel, quick and tidy. I picture the agenda I studied at my kitchen table, the red saucer under my coffee cup, the clean edge of the print,
the corner of the page held by a magnet on the fridge so I would not misplace it. Order of day, item by item, the promise of adult procedure that brought me here dressed plain and ready to sit like any other neighbor. A man with a meeting packet slips from the side door into the corridor. He looks at my folder, then at the guard, and then at the floor. The universal root of eyes that don't want to take a position. He tucks his packet under his arm and re-enters the hall without speaking. The door clicks, and the tape trembles with the draft his passing makes. Ava starts a simple list on her phone. She doesn't hide it from me. Signed visible. Clock matches notice. Clipboard face down. Badge inventory adequate. Chairs in back labeled mid-meeting. Guard repositioned. Receipt presented. Bylaws displayed. She taps save and looks up. Her mouth softens. She is 17 and still believes that a clear list can change the shape of a room. I place my palm lightly on the table to feel what is solid. The laminate is cool, almost damp with the breath of the air conditioner. I can smell toner from a primer nearby, sharp as a pencil shavings jar in a school office. The lemon cleaner rides above it. The world narrows to objects and their stubborn facts. Pen, paper, clock, door, tape, voice, body, name. The receptionist shifts her chair, and the wheels sing a low plastic note. She pulls the clipboard across the table until the spine touches the cup of pens. Her thumb finds the second page, then the third, and then returns to the first as if the papers were a deck that could be shuffled into a better outcome. She lifts the pen and positions it precisely above a blank line that waits like a space in the sidewalk where a root pushed up under the cement. The president raises his hand again, and the guard steps forward, drawing a new border down the middle of the corridor. The border the guard draws is a quiet thing, a line made of one man and a length of tape, but my body feels it like a cold finger on the back of my neck. I let the feeling pass through me and flatten my folder on the table. The papers spread with a soft sigh. Edges aligning the way bricks find each other when the level is true. Notice on the left, bylaws in the middle, open to the clause I marked years ago. Old minutes on the right, the page with my name lifted like a lid. I decide with my hands first. I keep my voice low. I place the dues receipt where the light from the ceiling hits the word paid and makes it brighter than the rest. The laminate under my palms is cool and a little damp from the air. The guard's shoe creaks once. The receptionist adjusts her chair, and the casters complain as if they're being asked to move twice for the same reason. The clock on the wall pulls another minute into the room.
Ava steps into the open space beside me, and the corridor changes temperature by 1 degree. She has a small warmth at my elbow. She doesn't ask what to do. She knows. She lifts her phone and frames the corkboard with the printed notice and the hallway clock in the same picture until they share a border. She tilts the lens down to the cup of pens, the badges, the clipboard that still won't show its face. She holds for a heartbeat, like she's counting with me. Then the soundless shudder takes it. I tell myself to move like water moves around a rock. I slide the bylaws higher, make room for the minutes. The paper whispers when it meets itself, page to page, a dry hush that reminds me of my wife turning the calendar at the end of each month, steady as rent, steady as winter. Her handwriting lives in the margin of the old minutes, a small curl under my name, a private footnote that says we were here and we did things by the book. I look at that curl and let my shoulders settle. The receptionist opens a drawer and takes out a stack of blank forms she does not need. She fans them, looks busy, puts them back. She says the system is still checking statuses. Her smile is the color of overhead lighting.
The guard looks at the line of the tape and then at the president, who is leaned over the dais speaking to the property manager. Both mouths hidden by palms, their voices smoothed into a single soft seam of sound. The 4 labeled seats in the back still sit empty, they little scraps of paper curling at the corners. Ava's breath smells like mint and a little orange. She starts a new note on her phone and reads softly so I can hear, but they cannot. Notice posted. Time matches. Sign says open to owners. Clipboard face down. Badge inventory adequate. Tape present across doorway. Guard repositioned twice. Dues receipt displayed. Bylaws open to attendance clause. She saves the list and then opens her camera again. Her fingers don't shake. I borrow her steadiness the way a sailor borrows a lighthouse he can't touch. I open my email on my phone and the glow of the screen paints the edge of my folder. I type the address printed at the bottom of the notice, the one they told us to use for questions about the meeting. I add the generic address for the management company that appears on the annual statements. Subject line, registration and attendance per posted notice and bylaws. My thumbs move slow and clear. I attach a photo of the notice, a photo of the clock, a photo of my bylaws page, the dues receipt, the owed minutes. I write 1 paragraph, nothing extra, no heat. I state that I am present in the foyer at the posted time with documentation of ownership and payment in full, and request registration per the bylaws clause highlighted. I ask that any refusal be provided in writing with a cited basis. The air conditioning hum sharpens. The lemon cleaner scent rises each time the door opens a slit and shuts again. The receptionist finally flips the clipboard entirely and sets it down where I can see the headings. Name, address, lot number, signature. A blacked-out stripe crosses 3 names above the first blank line, and the ink looks fresh. She places a pen on the metal clip and keeps her fingers on the barrel as if it might roll away on its own. I do not move the pen. Not yet. I slide the old minutes toward the edge so the date is plain. The neighbor from the early years clears his throat and steps closer to the corkboard where the owner's roster from last year is pinned with a thumbtack that has lost its red head. He finds my name, taps it once, lets his hand fall. He says nothing. His presence has the weight of a notarized line. Ava leans into the frame of the doorway just enough to tuck the easel sign, the tape, and the edge of the clipboard into one picture. She whispers that the hallway camera above the vending machine has a tiny green eye. I follow her gaze and see it blink. I do not wave. I do not perform. I think of my wife teaching me the way you lay out tools before a job so you don't have to look for anything once you start. Bylaws, notice, receipt, minutes, phone, witness, the tool chest of a very small storm.
The president taps the gavel once, twice, a sound like knuckles on a hollow desk. The guard's radio coughs a half word. The receptionist says something about numbers, and the word quorum floats into the hall again, light and heavy at the same time. I feel the syllables settle on my shoulders. It isn't the first time a number has been used to measure my right to be in a room. I let the weight sit, then breathe it off 1 rib at a time. I send the email. The whoosh is small, almost shy, but it exists. I forward the same message to myself, to fix the time. I open the camera on my phone and take a slow video that starts at the posted sign, travels past the clock, moves down to the tape line, and ends at the clipboard with the headings showing. Ava mirrors me from a different angle, so the 2 videos together could reconstruct the place the way a surveyor maps a property. The neighbor steps aside without being asked and leaves his outline on the bulletin board like a watermark. The receptionist reaches for a badge and then sets it back down.
She leafs through them until she finds one with no name. She holds it between two fingers, considers it like a coin, and then lays it flat again. She tells me to wait while they resolve a question. The word question rests in the space where the word answer should be. The clock clicks, and the sound is solid enough to lean on. I think about the first time we held a meeting in this community, on borrowed folding tables in a garage with the door open to the evening air. We bought a cheap ledger and promised it would be our memory. We agreed the book would be bigger than any one person. I still believe a book can be that if we make it so. The book is on the table now, only it is split into parts and printed on different kinds of paper and holds a little of my wife's hand in the corner where the ink has browned. Ava opens her note again and adds a line. Emails sent to association and management at time. Attachments documented. She saves it. She looks up and meets my eyes with something steady enough to thread a needle. Her presence makes the humiliation manageable, not smaller, but containable. She is young proof that the same rules can be offered to everyone, and that sometimes you have to hold them up yourself like a lantern. The guard shifts his weight back half an inch. The tape sags. The door to the hall opens another inch, and a sliver of microphone stand becomes visible. The metal pole fine as a fishing rod. The president leans toward the property manager, and then toward the secretary at the table. Their heads line up like a constellation I don't yet recognize. The receptionist's fingers lift off the pen and hover in the air the way a hand hovers over a burner it doesn't trust. I place the bylaws so the highlighted line faces the door. I angle the notice so the seal catches the light. I rest my palm on the minutes, where my wife's curl holds to the edge. I do not raise my voice. I do not touch the pen. I let the papers be taller than the distance between me and the room. Ava's phone records 3 seconds of hallway sound, vent hum, clock tick, a whisper from inside about the agenda, and then she stops. She slips the phone into her sleeve so it won't slide if she needs both hands. The guard straightens the old roster on the board and presses the tack deeper into the cork. The hallway feels like a lung held full. I turn slightly to bring the glass door into my peripheral vision and prepare to lift the pen when the opening shows its ink. My body is ready the way a runner is ready at a curb, toes feeling the seam between tile squares. My folder doesn't tremble. My breath goes in, goes out, goes in. A small red light blooms above the camera inside the hall, and the participation microphone rolls on its stand until it points straight at the empty chairs. If this resonates, leave a like, add your perspective below, and share it forward.
The red light above the camera changes the air the way a weather front changes a lake. The hall straightens itself by small degrees. The hum under the ceiling grows steady. A cool draft slips out through the cracked door and brushes my knees where the tape presses. The microphone inside settles on its stand and points at those empty chairs like a compass needle finally finding north. I keep my folder flat, my fingertips resting on the edge the way you hold a page before you read a name aloud. A low shuffle moves along the front table. The secretary leans toward a binder, and the rustle of plastic sleeves reaches the foyer. The president tips his chin toward her, and she finds the page that has been waiting all along. Her voice rides the sound system, soft, official, close to the line where a sentence becomes a shape rather than a persuasion. She reads the clause that describes who can enter, who can register, how the agenda makes room for those who came by the posted notice. The words are not personal. They are a rap lowered from a ship to meet the dock. The receptionist finishes turning the clipboard and slides it into the light. The headings line up clean: name, address, lot, signature.
The pen no longer swivels under her fingers. She sets it down and lets go. The cup of pen sits closer to my side than to hers. The water bottle no longer hides the word open on the easel sign. She finds a stack of badges in the second tray, new lanyards still stiff and smelling faintly of plastic. The shortage that hovered like a cloud takes on the size of a misunderstanding and then breaks apart without comment. The guard reads the room the way a trained person reads the small tails on a face. He shifts to the side of the doorway and lowers the tape to rest against the jamb instead of the air. It no longer cuts the corridor in half. It marks the edge of a space already defined by the door frame. A vent above the back row sighs, and the labeled papers on those 4 chairs are lifted, peeled, and pocketed by someone at the table. The chairs become what chairs are for. The property manager scrolls his tablet slower than before. His posture has the stiffness of someone committing the order of operations to memory. Ava breathes, and the change in her breath is the first kind of relief. She tucks one photo after another into a single folder on her phone, names the folder with the date and time, and sends it to the same address where my email landed. She doesn't hurry. The camera makes a low private click that lives between us. The old neighbor steps closer to the corkboard and straightens the list of owners with 2 fingers. The thumbtack makes a small squeak as it finds deeper cork. He looks at the wall the way a person looks at an old map and nods to himself. I set my phone face down on the folder and smooth the bylaws page with the back of my hand. The highlight I drew years ago catches the fluorescent light and throws it back in a thin crescent. The paper smells faintly of toner and time. My wife's tiny curl beside my name on the old minutes touches the edge of my thumb. I feel her habits in my bones. Put the tools in order. Label the parts. Do the job by the book so the book can outlast you. The hum of the air conditioner lays a calm line under that thought. The front table confers in a choreography that looks more like work than like defense. A man I don't know brings a thinner binder. The secretary tucks a loose sheet into the minutes folder and caps her pen, then uncaps it again. The word quorum returns, but this time it wears numbers rather than moods. Someone counts chairs with a legal pad, making X marks in a column. The PA system coughs once and then clears. The gavel taps only once, and not as punctuation, but as a marker that something procedural has just been placed in the right slot.
The receptionist picks up a blank badge and threads a lanyard through the slot. Her hands make quiet, practice movements. The plastic clicks when the edges meet. She doesn't hand it to me. She sets it on the table near the clipboard, a small square of readiness. The water bottle moves to the far corner. The sign on the easel faces the corridor without obstruction. The smell of coffee from inside is not as burnt as before. Someone has poured a fresh pot or turned off a stale one. Ava opens her notes and adds a line. Clause read over the system. Sign visible. List headings visible. Badge prepared. She records the time as it appears on the wall clock and on her screen. She presses send, and the soft outgoing whoosh folds into the steady noise of the vent. She looks at me, and I answer with my shoulders, letting them drop the way a person drops a bag after a long walk. The warmth of her presence becomes a kind of light I can stand in. The old neighbor claims a place along the wall and plants his feet like posts. He does not speak to the guard or to the receptionist. He looks at the list of owners, then at me, then nods in a rhythm that feels like punctuation. The corridor no longer feels like a holding area. It feels like an anteroom to the same building everyone else is in. The lemon scent has faded to something that smells like paper and air. I check the sent mail on my phone and see the timestamps stacked in tidy order.
Evidence is a calm thing when you are able to hold it in your hand. I capture a still frame from the video I took, sign, clock, tape, clipboard, and send that too to the same thread. I am not documenting for a fight. I am documenting so that the book remembers what it is made for. Procedure is only as strong as its record. Voices inside settle into a business-like pace. Reports, motions, seconds, the measured movements of a meeting. The secretary notes something for the minutes, her pen leaving a line of ink that looks straight from where I stand. I cannot read the words, but I can read the stance. It's the difference between writing a warning and writing a description. The binder breathes when she closes it and opens it again. The guard's eyes land on the mic and linger there, as if he understands what it means to point a device toward an empty chair. He steps back half a pace and puts his hands together at the wrist in front of him, less a barrier than a presence. The tape at the jam looks like an afterthought, a leftover from the earlier hour. The door remains open by that deliberate inch that lets sound pass without granting anything more. Through the slit, I see the top edge of a projector screen and the faint glow of a slide with black letters on white. Ava wipes a faint smudge off my folder with the sleeve of a hoodie and lets her hand rest there for a second. Mint and cotton, the clean scent of a teenager who brought a careful heart to a complicated room. I feel younger by one breath, older by one truth, that what she is doing is exactly what I was taught to do, and that I taught myself to keep doing it even when rooms pretended not to see me do it. The receptionist types something into a small window on her monitor, and the click of each key is distinct, a bead hitting wood. Her shoulders loosen. She slides a small pad of adhesive labels toward the edge of the table, the top one blank and ready. The badge beside it catches a line of light from the hallway and returns it without glitter. She glances at the clipboard and then at the hall, and her eyes do not skip this time. I take a slow breath and let the chill air move through me. The first tightness has left my fingers. The sounds from inside fold into a single fabric. Chairs shifting, a cough, the gentle bass of someone speaking into the mic from the dais. Nothing dramatic, familiar even. A public room doing public room things within earshot of the people meant to be there. I collect my papers into a neat fan so that each edge shows a little of the notice, a little of the bylaws page, a little of the minutes with the curl of my wife's mark. I slide the dues receipt to the top corner, the paid in full line square under the fluorescent light. The order makes me feel taller, not by height, but by measure. It's the same feeling you get when your name is spelled right on an envelope, when a clerk looks up and says it the way you say it, and the sound lands where it should. The secretary closes the binder with the kind of care that means something has been located, not concluded. The gavel taps once more, lighter than a knock at a neighbor's door. The president leans back and breathes into the mic in a way that makes the system hum for a second and then quiet. The hall is moved a fraction toward the place the notice promised. The corridor matches that move with a small, unspoken nod. I place the folder on my lap and rest my hand over it as if it were a heartbeat. And in the hush between the clock ticks, I let the room fill with a clean, simple readiness. The room meets me halfway. The secretary lifts the minutes binder and lays it open to a clean page. The president touches the mic and the red light holds steady, a small star that says the room is being remembered as it happens. The guard steps back one pace and lowers the tape so it rests against the jamb like a ribbon after a parade. The receptionist slides the clipboard toward me and lets her hand fall to her lap. No words, only the click of a pen finding the table.
I write my name. The paper has the tooth of fresh stock, and the pen leaves a strong line that holds its shape. Address, lot number, signature. The lanyard badge waits beside the cup of pens. I lift it. The plastic squeaks against my fingertips, new and a little stiff. The string lays cool across the back of my neck. I feel the small weight on my chest and the years it took to make that weight ordinary. I carry my folder with both hands, past the door that now stays open without effort, into the shallow quiet of the aisle. The carpet smells faintly of coffee and the kind of clean that comes from diligence rather than bleach. A chair leg grates softly. The microphone stand looks taller up close. I set the folder on the auxiliary table beside it and arrange the papers the way I practiced in the hallway. Notice, bylaws page, minutes, receipt. The pages lie flat as if they were made to rest in this order. The president recognizes the clause already read and asks the secretary to keep the page in view. His voice is measured, like a ruler laid along a line. I state my name and address for the record. I speak about the notice posted on the board and the time on the wall clock. I speak about the clause in the bylaws that governs entry and registration, the dues paid in full, the prior minutes where my name appears. I keep to facts. I ask that the minutes reflect that I arrived at the posted time with proper documents and was delayed at the door until the clause was read into the record and the process corrected. Paper makes an honest sound when a pen travels it. The secretary writes. The president nods once, not theatrical, and turns his palm toward the property manager. The manager clears his throat into the mic, a small rain on the speaker, and says the credentialing procedure will be restated to staff in writing and posted at the foyer. He says the tape will not be used as a barrier for owners during posted meetings. He says badges and sign-in sheets will be prepared in advance and that any doubt about eligibility must be resolved against the written record, not a feeling or a guess. The receptionist raises her hand from the table. Her voice is soft. She says she will follow the posted procedure and apologizes to the room for not rotating the sign-in sheet when asked. The apology is not decorated. It lands cleanly on the minutes page and stays there. The guard inclines his head and says he will stand on the side of the doorway in future meetings unless directed for safety, not as a line across the entrance. His words are short, and the mic takes them in without judgment.
The president speaks again, and the tone is administrative rather than defensive. He asks the secretary to read the clause aloud a second time so that the recording contains it clearly. Her voice is steady, a string plucked once and held. Meetings open to property owners. Registration permitted per agenda. Rights preserved when notice is posted. She reads through to the part about attendance being recorded without selective delay. The words pour into the speakers and wash back into the corners of the hall like water finding the shape of a room. Ava stands near the doorway where she can see both the sign and the clock. I feel her presence like a hand on my shoulder. She watches the mic as if it were a living thing that can remember. Her calm is the yes at the center of this moment. The neighbor from the early years takes a seat along the side wall and folds his hands, a witness whose very posture says enough. The president turns a page on the agenda and names the item that brought me here. He notes for the record that contributions under that item will be taken from owners present and registered per the bylaws. The secretary writes this down. The property manager nods. The room exhales in a way that belongs to procedure, not to favor. I feel my chest widen to match it. I offer my comments in the same clear format. 1, 2, 3. What the rule says, what practice should match, what the notice promised. No grievance words, only the language the book understands. When I finish, I step back from the mic and the stand does not tilt. The president thanks me by name and instructs the secretary to note that the initial impediment was corrected after the clause was read and the sign-in completed,
and its staff will receive training at the next cycle. He asked the property manager to draft a 4-year protocol with visible instructions before the next meeting, and to remove any barrier tape that suggests exclusion. He asked the receptionist to post the protocol beside the notice board and keep the sign-in table arranged so headings face the public. Consequences become sentences on paper. The secretary writes, "Training to be conducted. 4-year signage to be revised. Barrier tape not to be used as an access control for owners. Sign-in procedure clarified. Apology entered into the minutes." The pen moves, lifts, moves again. The gavel taps once to mark the entry. Not punishment, correction. Not spectacle, standard. I lift my folder and feel how light it has become simply by having its contents recognized. The highlighted line on the bylaws page could be any sunlit stripe under glass. The old minutes show the small curl of my wife's hand, and in the posture of the secretary as she writes, I see something like her. A woman taking care of the book so the book can take care of the people. The smell of paper and ink sits warm under the cooler air. The president asks if any other factual corrections are needed for the record to match the notice and the bylaws. None rise. He directs the property manager to include a summary of the corrected delay in the final minutes that will be posted. He says the association will circulate the protocol to all owners by email, so the next meeting opens with one fewer shadow. He thanks the guard for repositioning and the receptionist for preparing the spare badges. He does not linger on praise. He moves through the agenda with a pace that works because the floor is level now. I take my seat near the aisle. The badge rests against my shirt and warms to my skin. Ava shifts closer and whispers that the timestamps match. Her breath tastes of mint and relief. The neighbor from the early years gives a small nod toward the dais that says the work is being done where it belongs. I allow myself to sit deeper into the chair and let the hum of the air conditioner become the clean background of a room behaving as promised. The item concludes with notes that leave room for owners to be heard at the next step. The secretary closes the binder part way and lays a hand on it as if calm could be transferred by touch. The red light above the camera holds, then dims, then brightens again as someone leans into the mic for the next piece of business. I run a thumb along the spine of my folder and feel the ridge where the plastic meets paper.
The president ends the section by restating the commitments: training scheduled, protocol drafted and posted, minutes to reflect the attempted delay in its correction, barrier tape removed except for safety purposes not related to access. He looks out past the front row and lets his gaze land on the doorway for a count, long enough that the corridor becomes part of the hall. The acknowledgement is not grand, but it is public. That is the difference that matters. I breathe in the room as it is now. I breathe out the room as it was an hour ago. Lemon cleaner fades into paper and coffee. The clock's click returns to being a clock, no longer a gavel before the gavel. I place my folder on my lap and hold it with both hands, not to protect it, but to honor it. Evidence is not armor. Evidence is a bridge you can walk across without bowing your head. The truth, when spoken into a microphone and written into the book, makes a simple sound anyone can live by. A rule that belongs to everyone belongs to me too. If this meant something to you, like and subscribe, and in the comments, tell me your choice in a moment like this. See you soon.